Hey everyone, it's us again. We wanted to take a little time in this video to talk to you about conflict and arguments, especially arguments between partners, and some ways that you can kind of set healthy boundaries in those to make sure that you're comfortable throughout the entire thing. What I guess the best way to start is, and we plan on doing a longer video in the future, but what is a boundary?
Pretty much expressing your wants and desires verbally so the other person knows.
Okay,
and that'll be different for everyone.
And these wants and desires, what's their goal? Like, what are you trying to achieve with them?
You want to feel safe and respected.
Safe, respected. Would you say happy even? Like these boundaries need to be respected?
Something that facilitates happiness? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Could be.
Okay.
Yeah.
But basically, yeah, a boundary.
But you're not always going to be happy when a boundary is set or when you're expressing a boundary. Because if you're codependent, you feel like setting a boundary is hurting the other person. So it's not always going to make you happy.
Oh, and then that would make you upset because you don't want to hurt
them.
them.
But you need to set that boundary for long-term happiness.
Okay.
So it's not always going to make you happy to set a boundary.
Okay, that's a good detail right there. So basically, safety and respect, those are what boundaries aim to achieve. Just like kind of a picket fence, right? The goal of a picket fence around your house is so that people know that inside that picket fence, they need to respect that area. And that picket fence is also there to help make you feel safe.
And the reason why you express them is because we all need different things to feel safe. And so if you expect someone else to know what your boundary is, that is setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, because no one's going to know what's going on inside your head and what you require. So it's up to you to express it.
Yeah.
But again, we'll talk more about that on a future video in a little more depth. For now, we want to talk about how you can use these boundaries during conflict that you might get into with a friend.
On Legs Day?
Yeah. On Legs
Day. We
Day.
both get a little moody on Legs Day.
Yeah, those are very energy-intensive days for us, and so we both become a little more on edge and irritable, and those are usually, the days where either of us squat or deadlift, those are the days where we tend to have a little shorter of a fuse. And so we
get hangrier.
Yeah, we get hangrier. We're just a little more short-tempered with one another. But there's ways to navigate that because, oftentimes you don't realize that you're acting in that way. And you might start facilitating conflict when you don't intend to. And the other person can start to make you aware of that by letting you know that you're beginning to cross their boundaries. And if you're in a relationship, you shouldn't want to superimpose yourself on another person's boundaries because that means you're not respecting them. And when you're in a relationship with someone, you want to respect them.
Yeah, because if you feel like you're not seen or heard, you're going to lose that connection with your partner and want to leave.
Yeah.
And so instead of leaving during a conflict, what can you do?
Well,
what are things you can say?
Well, the first thing is that if someone is upset at you, you can, and you're not understanding why, you can simply ask them to express their upsetness in a different way.
Use different words. Sometimes it comes across clearer when it is stated in a different way. And so, like when someone says something that hurts your feelings, you can say, wow, that hurt. Can you say that different so I can maybe see your perspective?
Yeah. What's another way?
If voices are being raised, we don't really raise our voices too often. But I've been in relationships where that was frequent, and something you could say is, can you bring your tone down a little, please? Or I guess I've said that to people at the store that get upset at me. That happens kind of frequently.
And that one is admittedly tough because the thing with what we're talking about now is both people have to be willing to do this if it's going to be successful.
Most people don't know how to set boundaries or respect boundaries.
Yeah.
So you're working with that.
And so if you're working with someone who is not willing to engage with you on setting healthy boundaries and you ask them to bring their tone down, it might just make them even more mad.
Yeah, don't tell your wife to calm down when she's freaking out.
Yeah, instead what you want to do when she tells you she's angry is drape a towel over her shoulders and say, now you're super angry.
Don't do that. He's trying. It wasn't funny.
A little humor goes a long way, though, at dissipating anger. And that's actually plays perfectly into another thing you can do, especially with a loved one, is just ask to be with them. Ask to hold hands. Ask to hug. Just ask them, can we just pause for a sec and love each other? And that can really help.
It brings down the intensity of whatever is going on.
Can really help dissipate
and makes
things.
You re-examine the scenario that's going on.
Yeah, it kind of makes you ask.
We drop out of that defense mode when we touch.
Yeah, it kind of makes you ask, is what we're arguing or fighting about right now really worth it? Or can we just love each other and move forward? And it kind of helps bring that into perspective.
And sometimes we get upset when our perspective isn't acknowledged. Mm-hmm. So something you can ask is, can you validate my experience right now?
Yeah. Everything's kind of a two-way street, right?
If we don't feel heard, that's usually when we get upset. And it causes a lot of conflict in relationships.
Yeah. And, a lot of times people in arguments think that there's only one right or wrong answer. And sometimes that might be the case, depending on what you're arguing about. But most of the times that's not true.
It's just that two people are seeing things two different ways. It's that simple.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that quote by Nietzsche. I'm going to butcher it, but it's along the lines of, there are no facts. There's only interpretation. Yeah. The same events happen. Two people see it differently, and someone gets upset because the way they see it isn't being validated. So, if you don't feel validated, express that to them and just say, look, I just feel like you're not seeing things through my eyes, and I just want that validation before we move forward.
And the last thing is, when all else fails, usually you need a 30-minute break. And so what I do is I usually go for a walk and then come back, and usually I have a completely new perspective on the situation.
Yeah.
It's enough time to give me a break.
Yep. Yeah, that's kind of like the last resort, because if they're not willing to engage in healthy boundary setting with you, then the only really boundary you can set is to leave and disengage entirely. And then you can re-engage after there's been some time to calm down, right? And that really only needs 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so if you like this, give us a like and share it.
Or comment.
Or
both.
Yep. We'll see you next time.
And subscribe.
Yes.